one of those guys living in La La Land, making a living, pretending to be someone that I'm not. And, but Hollywood sure can wield a mighty hand across America, can't it? By influencing people with their agendas through that make-believe world. They do what they want. And I'm trying to influence America in the TV and movie world with a positive agenda, one that hopefully our founding fathers will be proud of. Last year I did a little $2 million movie that grossed over $140 million worldwide, and some of you have already told me you saw it, God's Not Dead. It was a great honor to be part of the movie. We shot it down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And actually I just finished another one. I met a couple here, where are they, that deal with human trafficking? Where is your hand? There they are. I just finished a movie called Caged No More. They'll be out in theaters January 22nd. Please give that a support when it comes out in the theater near you. And Governor Bobby Jindal was in it with me, did a couple scenes as himself. It's one of the biggest issues facing Louisiana, so it was pretty cool to meet him. I got invited, along with David Lane, to the governor's mansion. Had a great time. It was wonderful. They had all these Baptist preachers there, and they had me speak, and I said, well, I'm not Baptist, but if you feel a need to talk back to me, you can go for it. So it was a very wonderful, wonderful experience. So people have asked me, though, how I actually prepared to play the role of an atheist college professor when I'm actually a Christian conservative. And yes, I know many of you are shocked. You're saying, what are you saying, Hercules, that there are actually atheist college professors in our schools, universities? I am shocked. Anyway, my prep for that role was pretty easy, because what I did was I thought about a Christian, and then I took away all reason and accountability. That's not the Jack Nicholson line, by the way. But really, the only way to be an atheist is to ignore the evidence and to deny the truth. And we all know that the left hates the truth. They hate facts. It drives them crazy. They love to react to everything with their emotions, their feelings, because apparently they care so much more than the rest of us. I actually had an actress on one of my TV series. I did 7 years, I did a show called Hercules in New Zealand, and I got a break. It became the most watched TV show in the world, which was cool. We passed Baywatch. Of course, we called my show Baywatch BC because we showed a lot of cleavage as well. But when she found out, my second series called Andromeda, it was the first show Gene Roddenberry wrote after Star Trek. And I shot that in Vancouver, British Columbia, which is beautiful up there. And she found out pretty quickly that I was a conservative. And her first reaction was to look at me and say, "You're against education!" I was like, it's weird. I go, really? I'm against education because I'm a conservative. I mean, it's sad, the number of people being led astray by the lies of the leftist propaganda. We teach our children in our public schools to honor Mother Nature. Global warming, it's the end of the world, right? That evolution is truth, and that God is just a figment of a deranged imagination. Well, welcome to America's public education. By the way, did you know California now ranks 50th in the state? We're the worst public educated state in the country. And I keep tabs on that because for 18 years, I have the #1 after-school program in the state of California called the World Fit for Kids. I work with over 12,000 kids annually in the LA Unified School District, which is in the very good school district. 54% dropout rate, starting as low as 5th grade. In my 18 years as being spokesperson and chair of World Fit for Kids, we average a 98% graduation rate. Thank you. I go to Washington, D.C. once a year to meet with Congress members and say, you know, I thought after 18 years we'd have this program in at least 12 cities across America. We're still in LA. All I get, on both sides, all I get is a pat on the back that you're doing a great job. There's a very strange and purposeful dumbing down of the kids in our country, and it's got to stop. Because you know what? We're not all the same. Bill Gates will always be smarter than me. Tiger Woods will always be a better golfer than me. But that's what makes any of us and all of us want to excel, is having competition. Competition is a good thing. That's what built this country. But they're okay with forcing children, I don't know if you've heard this, but they're forcing kids, telling kids to read the Quran in our public schools. Can't have the Bible, though. No, can't have that. The Bible at one time was the textbook in schools in America. That was the textbook. Teach them about creation. No, I can't do that. Survival of the fittest, yes, that's okay. And then we wonder why kids go to schools with guns, wearing Darwin Rules t-shirts, as the kids did at Columbine High School. Survival of the fittest. It's a heck of a way to go through life, frankly. You have no hope. There's no love there. There's no grace. There's no forgiveness. Shannon and I, we are on different paths, but we have the same common goals. Shannon wants to influence the policy from within government. For myself, I want to influence culture, and therefore policy, from that great bastion of moral principles and cultural values, Hollywood. You know, it's a funny story about Hollywood's understanding of Judeo-Christian values. My wife Sam and I went to a screening of the movie Noah. That was out last year at Paramount Studios. I got invited, for whatever reasons, Paramount invited me. I was there with Pepperdine University faculty. And the one token Christian producer came on stage to introduce the movie. And he basically apologized for the lack of religious biblical content in the movie we were about to see. He was already apologizing for it before we saw it, because he knew the crowd he had. He was calling it one man's, the director, his artistic vision and interpretation of the story of Noah and the flood. By the way, the director they hired was an atheist. So right away, did anybody see Noah? Pretty disappointing? My wife, halfway through the movie, turns to me and whispers, she says, "This is Transformers meets Waterworld." And did the same thing with Exodus. They hired yet another atheist director for Exodus. I saw his interview, and he actually said, you know, well, the parting of the Red Sea couldn't have possibly happened. It had to be a tsunami or something that parted that sea. Now, if I was the guy interviewing him, I would have looked at him and said, pretty damn good timing on that tsunami, wouldn't you say? So after the movie, there was a Q&A, and someone asked in the audience, if Hollywood, in the light of the great success of independent movies like God's Not Dead, actually something, I was way in the back row, he didn't know I was there, I thought, that's pretty cool, it was mentioned in my movie. If Hollywood would be creating more faith-based movies in the future, and the producer said this, he said, Hollywood is great at creating the blockbuster, and the independent producers are really good at those smaller, little faith-based movies, and that's probably the way it's going to stay. And I have to report, unfortunately, and I'm pretty sure he's right. Sam and I were talking one night, and I brought up the fact, I said, you look at television today, you know how much crap is on television? I'm reliving my childhood because I don't want my kids watching what's on TV. So I got full seasons of I Dream of Jeannie, Gilligan's Island, The Brady Bunch, I Love Lucy, Mayberry. They love it. They love it. And it's fun for me. What's scary is I remember the episodes. So we're talking about that, and I said, you look at Highway to Heaven, Seventh Heaven, Touched by an Angel. By the way, I did 5 2-hour movies before Hercules became a series down in New Zealand. I got to work a whole year with Anthony Quinn, which was really cool to work with. He played Zeus. But in the very first movie, it was a Roma Downey, all 5'2" of her, playing Queen of the Amazons. So last year, we got invited to see, my kids love The Voice, and I don't know how Mark Burnett found out about it, but he invited us to come in there. Mark Burnett came in to meet me, and he wanted to do a selfie with me. And he says, yeah, Roma talks great about me. I said, well, you know, before she was touched by an angel, she was touched by Hercules. So I don't know if you appreciated that or not. Anyway, you look at those shows, they all ran 8, 9, 10 years. They ran a long time. And there's nothing on TV for the last 12 years like that. So my wife wakes up the next morning, she's brainstorming. She comes and she says, you know, I got an idea for a show. So we start kicking it around, and we worked on it. We ended up hiring a showrunner to come up with a 10-page outline, and we went out to Hollywood. So it's not, the concept really isn't touched by an angel, it's more like punched by an angel. But we went out to all the cable outlets and all the networks to pitch this thing. And well, before I say the one story about the one network, I'm not going to bring it up, but we sold it to NBC and Sony. So I believe in the power of prayer like everybody else does, and I'm asking you right now, we're going to shoot this pilot in March. I want you all to pray that it gets picked up, because this is a quality show for families to be able to watch. And it's a miracle that a network actually signed on to pick it up. It's a miracle. But I got to tell you, one of the network execs that we went to talk to and pitched the show to, very nice lady, really nice lady, she explained to us that while she recognized the desire, even the demand for faith-based content, she couldn't really understand why people wanted to watch faith-based television or movies. She actually said that. She said, look, I'm Jewish, but my faith is somewhere way over there. And for that reason, I'm not sure where your show would fit in our lineup here. But thanks for stopping by. So that's what we have to deal with, that mentality. That group, that secular group of people down in Hollywood, they decide what everybody in the world gets to see. They get to push their agendas, their issues, and cut out anybody else's that disagrees with what they do. And I think our attitude represents a general attitude. A lot of members of the Hollywood community, and obviously the attitude of the media, and unfortunately the attitude of many politicians. When I was shooting another movie I did called Soul Surfer, it's a story of a young surfer, Bethany Hamilton, lost her arm to a tiger shark attack when she was only 13 years old. We got 2 months in Hawaii to shoot that movie, so it was a pretty good gig. And we homeschool our kids. You've never seen kids finish their schoolwork so fast. They were ready to be on the beach by 10:30. But anyway, there was a scene in the movie that the studio cut out of the movie before we even shot it. And the true story of Bethany, who had lost over 60% of her blood by the time we had got her, in the scene where I'm in the water with her, I get her to the shore, we run up to the ambulance. And the real story, one of the paramedics was a Christian, and he asked this little 13-year-old girl, he said, have you accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior? And this little girl looked up and said, yes, I have. Well, the studio couldn't have that. You couldn't have someone using the Lord's name not in vain. So they suppressed the scene, they had the writer take it out of the movie. See, it is much more reasonable to use Christ as a swear word in Hollywood than one as an embodiment of God's love for his creation. Thank God Shannon's not afraid of that, though. She's not afraid about discussing her faith. This is such a tremendous and admirable quality in a person's, specifically a political leader, because we have a problem with religion in our culture today, and I know it stems from a misunderstanding of the definition of the word. Because Merriam-Webster defines religion as this, as an interest, a belief, or an activity that is very important to a person or a group. But doesn't everybody have a set of beliefs? Atheists have beliefs, right? By this definition alone, everyone is religious. Now explain to me how we can possibly think it is reasonable to demand that religion be kept out of the public square, out of politics, and out of education. We have kicked God out of every place you can mention and wonder why bad things are happening all around us. America was founded on Judeo-Christian values, but we are now a secular, socialist country. Our founding fathers are certainly spinning in their graves. Washington and the mainstream media have done a wonderful job of putting a spin on separation of church and state. Because when Thomas Jefferson wrote that, it isn't what the government has made it sound like today. It was to protect churches from the government. Survival of the fittest. This is a secularist choice for their set of beliefs, but it kind of presents with an extraordinary dilemma. Because if they believe in survival of the fittest, if they truly believe in that, then what's their beef with the terrorists? What's their beef with the Planned Parenthood crazy nut shooter the other week? That same actress, by the way, in my TV show, who said I was against education, she also went after me on other issues that the left says they want to make better, but they actually make things worse with the laws and regulations they pass, so things get more worse than they were before, and then the left blames the right again, and then they pass even more laws and regulations that make those issues get even more worse, and they still blame the right. I get a headache even trying to put my mind around that. Talk about a cycle that needs to be broken. This is insane, people, it's insane. She would give me, honestly, she would give me the Nazi Heil Hitler sign on set every day. And I said, you need to understand what the term Nazi comes from. That's National Socialist. I said, if everybody's a Nazi, you're the one who's a Nazi here. But she's Canadian, so she didn't get it. I lived there for 5 years, and I'll tell you, there's a number of conservatives up there that I met, but I also met people that spent a lot of time bagging on America. And I would just say, yeah, Canada would be so much better off if your country physically was on top of Russia or China, wouldn't it? I go, wait a minute, you wouldn't be Canada anymore, would you? It's amazing. I mean, we were talking about this earlier at my young Republican table, which is awesome. And who's the first country any country calls when they're in trouble? They don't call Russia, they call us. Oh, we'll get it. Oh, then she attacked me another time about abortion. And I didn't bring it up. She said, you conservatives and abortion. No man can tell me what I can do with my body. So one day, I set her up. I was mean, but I set her up. We're in the makeup room before the set, and you know, she's sitting in the chair next to me at work, and I'm reading the paper, and I went, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And she says, what? And I said, oh, they just gave a guy 7 years for eating a sea turtle egg in Hawaii. He should have got life. And I go, what? It's an egg. And she says, Kevin, that sea turtle egg would have become a sea turtle. I had it, and I went, wow, what was the egg that's impregnated inside a woman? What was that going to become? You know what her answer was? The typical answer I get from most people on the left. She got up, red, fuming, mad, turned to me and said,